Hello and welcome everyone to today's session on how to manage inspections and habitability. This is the second workshop in our new Asset and Property Management Workshop series, and we're proud to present this series in partnership with today's speaker, Angel Rogers from National Core. And with that, I'll hand it over to Angel.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I hope that wherever you are, you're staying hydrated and cool. It's a crazy heat wave in Southern California. Probably not something everybody wants to go do inspections during, but it is definitely something that we have to do. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So first of all, saying thank you for being here and talk a little bit about conducting property inspections and the importance of that. So when I was an on-site manager, this was probably the thing I didn't want to do the most. I did not want to do my property inspections. And I'm sharing that with you because I want you to learn from my mistake and understand that how the absolute necessity it is for you to be for asset managers, for property managers to be out there walking those properties. You can't get to know your property unless you are actively walking it and inspecting it. So for me, it took me a few years after of being in this business to understand the importance of that. But once I got there, man, I was there because it gave me a better feel for my community. And if there was a question that was asked, I could answer it. I didn't have to call somebody else to find out what was going on. So I really want to emphasize the importance of doing these inspections on a regular basis. And I'll be doing that throughout the entire session. If you were on my last session, you know that I will take questions in the chat box. I'm happy to ask questions while we begin. Okay, are you having trouble? Is it me who's having trouble with audio or somebody else? Can we hear?
We can hear you fine, but
okay, great. Just want to make sure. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and get started with what we're going to look at today, what our learning objectives are for today. So we're going to start with, again, the importance of the property inspection, as well as defining habitability. So this is a huge word in our industry. We need to make certain that everybody understands what the elements of habitability are and what our responsibilities are when it comes to making certain that our homes are habitable. Actually, it says for humans. It's kind of a fun definition. We'll also give you lots and lots of tips for how to walk the property and for things to look for, as well as tips for walking vacant units, and as well as capital improvements. Okay. And then we'll also talk, I put a couple of slides in here on REAC inspections. I am not the REAC queen, I'll be the first one to tell you that, but our company does have a lot of information to share as far as REAC. So I just gave you a little bit of information at the end, but I can always forward you some more information from my compliance department if that's something that you're interested in. All right, so we start by talking about how and why we do these inspections. And they're done for many reasons. They're done for gathering budgeting information, for marketing, for insurance coverage. Our risk management department actually walks our properties twice a year as well. In addition to all of the other people walking the properties, our risk management department will go out there. They have a different set of eyes that are looking for things. But it also can be about energy conservation, capital improvements. There's so many different reasons. But the main reason that we're looking at these properties so closely and layering, pulling back the layers of the onion, if you will, is to determine the need for the maintenance. Once you have stopped maintaining the property, it becomes a detriment to the asset. So we're always looking for what we need to do to maintain that property. And I say this, honestly, I'm sure all of us in the industry, in our property management world, have had a little bit of a difficult time watching what's happening near Miami in Surfside with that property that crumbled. And it's devastating to think that it happened, number one. It's even more devastating as more information comes out about, yes, it had been inspected and things hadn't been done. So the moral of the story is, if you're going to inspect a building, you need to make certain that you actually follow through with whatever it is that's found there. That was a terrible tragedy in Miami, but it's actually come into play with my trainings that I've been doing for the past couple of weeks, because I've been talking about property maintenance and risk management and classes of that nature. And it just comes up every time where it's just such a tragedy, but there's a lot of so many things coming up. And yes, oh, Juan, hi Juan. This is definitely a conversation point for residents. Absolutely, I can see that residents would probably be interested in having that kind of information. So we'll keep going and talk about. We're going to start by talking about habitability and the implied warranty of habitability and what our responsibility is as property owners when it comes to this topic. So when we talk about habitability, we really have to look at the definition of what this means. So I got a little forensic on some of this, but I think it's important that everybody has a true understanding of habitability. So landlords of residential properties are required to lease units that are in habitable condition. So you take the word habitable, what does that mean? We are going to peel it back and tell you everything there is to know about habitability. Once the unit becomes uninhabitable, the risk and liability increases significantly. So interestingly enough, and I am going to refer to Miami, those were individually owned condos. It's still a building and it's still a tragic thing that happened in our history, but that building, the units did not become uninhabitable. So I think that's probably where some of the disconnect was. The units were not uninhabitable. It's interesting. I just keep going back to this, but my husband came in, we were talking about it like the day it happened. And I said, why wasn't it red tagged? If it was just inspected in April, why wasn't it red tagged? There should have been red tags. But I don't think anybody understood the severity of it. And I guess they do now, and every building should be use that as a yardstick on how we should look at these things. But again, the liability does increase significantly. Uninhabitable living conditions should be treated as an emergency. So if there's one of the elements of habitability is breached, then as the management of an ownership of the community, we need to treat it as an emergency. I think we probably all, if you've been in an eviction situation, one of the first things that people being evicted will say when they get to court is that my apartment is uninhabitable. They're actually schooled on that when they say, why did you give me eviction notice? Was there something wrong with the apartment? There's a lot of people schooling our residents, and it's very easy for them to claim habitability. And so that's why we need to stay on top of it on every single day. There's no excuse to not be on top of habitability. So let's talk a little bit about what an implied warranty is. So the implied warranty of habitability is an unstated guarantee that a rental property meets basic living and safety standards before occupation and will continue to meet them for the duration of the occupancy. So this is sometimes where I think we miss the mark as property managers and owners. So we give them the apartment, the contract is executed, there's conditions, all of those that happen, they get the apartment in exchange for the rent. But we give them to them in a certain condition, in a habitable condition. It is our duty, and it's the implied warranty, to maintain the apartment in that condition. So that is implied with the rental agreement here in California. So again, California's implied warranty of habitability requires the landlord to keep the premises in a condition fit for the occupation of human beings. Landlords must substantially comply with housing and building code that materially affect a tenant's safety and health. So it's not just what they get it and it's in good condition, it has to remain in the same condition. Even if the lease does not actually state that this warranty in writing, it is implied in the lease. And that's one of the interesting parts of California. There's only a couple of other states. I believe when I did the research on habitability, I think it was Idaho and Virginia also have this, but there's not that many. Most of them, it's in the lease about implied warranty. So what does that mean? what does that mean for us? What do we have to do to make certain that we stay habitable? So I want to give you all of the elements and our responsibilities as owners, what we have to do in order to keep the property in habitable condition. So this is a long list. So you can either write it down, you can take a picture, or you can just wait and I'll send it to you, or the ladies from Scamp will send it to you. So it starts with our responsibilities as owners and managers. It starts with effective waterproofing and weather protection. So what this means is that there needs to be a roof that's in good condition and windows that are sealed correctly so that there cannot be any water intrusion. So when you hear that there's a roof leak, and believe me, as a property manager, I understand that while it's raining, it's very difficult to stop a roof leak unless you're using Henry's dry patch. Henry's wet and dry patch and some Visqueen is probably the best you can do during a storm. But it is something that needs to be considered as an emergency because it is an element of habitability. So anytime there is a roof leak, any roof complaint, or any kind of water seeping in through windows, that would be something that would be considered an emergency because it speaks to habitability. Okay, the next one is plumbing facilities need to be in good working order. So yeah, I believe me, I've been on site. I understand that when there's a clogged toilet or a clogged sink, for us, it might be routine maintenance. It's just something we have to do, but it's an element of habitability. So plumbing facilities need to be in good working order. So what that means is that if you continually have issues in one of your buildings, you need to do a deeper dive, if you will. It's kind of weird, plumbing, deeper dive. But you do need to get into and see what's going on. In other words, you might need to get a plumbing company to come out with a camera to determine what's happening. There might be tree roots. I just had a student at one of my other classes share with me some pictures of tree roots, and I probably could have gone the rest of my life without seeing that. But as a property manager, every time you think you've seen it all, it gets worse. But anyway, you might have to go a little bit further into making certain that these plumbing facilities are in good working order because it is an element of habitability. And I think most of us understand that it's better to spend $500 now than $5,000 later. So that plumbing, the pipes, especially if you're working with an older product, if your property is older, then you might need to have different areas flushed out to make certain that these are in good working order. So heating and gas facilities must be in good working order as well. I want to see if I have it on here. It's interesting in California. Let me talk about this really quick. I don't have air conditioning on here right now, and I'll explain that in just a few moments. But heating is an absolute element of habitability. Anytime there isn't heat in an apartment, that could be considered uninhabitable. So again, those are the calls. The reason why heat is so important is because people, not only is it part of the responsibility of an owner, but it is something that people will react to very quickly. So heating has to be. So one of the things that we do as a company is that we do understand that during those peak times when it's really hot and when it's really cold, we might not be able to get our vendor out there immediately. So we invested in portable fans, portable air conditioning units, as well as portable heaters. Now it's just as a Band-Aid until you can get somebody in there to fix it. But it is really important that you have those standing by, because if it's going to be a couple of days, that could be something that you could end up getting in a lot of trouble with as far as habitability. Now, interestingly enough, like I was talking about air conditioning. Air conditioning is not a state mandated element of responsibility, but it is region mandated. So we have property in the high desert and in the low desert. So we have property in Antelope Valley and we have property in Coachella Valley out in the Palm Springs area. In those areas, air conditioning is considered part of habitability. So when there's a breakdown of any kind of air conditioning, then that would be considered an emergency as well. The reason why it's not state mandated is because if your air conditioning doesn't work and you're across the street from San Clemente Beach, then it's probably not the same kind of emergency as it is as if you're in Indio. So it's not state mandated, but it is region mandated. So you want to make certain that if you have buildings in the areas where it's mandated, that your staff and that you understand that that is something that is part of habitability. Here's another part of this. Remember, so you have to keep it maintained. I've actually had students before. So just to give you some context here, I also teach for several different apartment associations, and I teach for the for-profit side as well, the conventional side. And I often get questions where people say, you know what, once something's broken down, I'm not going to fix it. That mentality is what gives us a bad name in this industry. We've got to stop that mentality. If we provided something, we have to maintain it. So I've had people in the last 6 weeks, I've had somebody say, well, you know, the air conditioner broke, but I told them when they moved in that once it broke, I wasn't fixing it. That is not cool, number one, and it's a problem with the habitability. So once you bring something, you provide it, you have to maintain it. Okay, so the next one is electrical systems. So all of the electrical systems need to be in good working order. This is something that we look at with some of our older buildings. You know, today's demands on the electricity grid are much different than they were when we were building some of these assets. You know, the assets from the 70s and 80s maybe had 2 plugs per room, 2 electrical plugs per room, and didn't have the correct, you know, didn't have additional amps and available. But today it's different. Everything that we own is plugged into an energy source. So that's one of the upgrades that we talk about when we're doing our capital improvements, which we'll talk about at the very end, is considering electricity upgrades and adding some breakers, especially if you have older buildings, because the demand is so high now. Back in the 70s, you plugged in a lamp and a TV. Now in the 80s, now you have, everybody has their own computer that needs to be plugged in, their telephones, their iPads, Google Home, everything needs to be plugged in now. So we need to make sure that we have electrical systems that are in good working order. Clean and sanitary buildings and grounds. So this can actually really work in your favor as a property manager. If you have residents who are simply do not clean up, they put trash everywhere and you know who they are, and they're not taking care of the building, you can actually cite that this is a health and safety concern. So clean and sanitary buildings and grounds. And I'm sure we've all seen properties that are not clean and not sanitary and the grounds look terrible. So that's actually an element of habitability. Adequate trash receptacles. This does not mean inside, this means on the exterior. So they need to have places where they can dispose of their trash. And floors, stairways, and railings need to be in good condition as well. This is actually an element of habitability. Stairways and railings, and we'll talk about this a little bit later when we go into the property inspection. They can be really, they can be very dangerous. So we need to make sure that they're always in good condition. I'll give you some tips on that too. All right, there's more. Okay, so there's also needs to be a working toilet, sink, tub, or shower in a ventilated and private room. So what that means is that obviously the toilet, sink, tub, or shower, it does not have to be both, but it does need to be in a ventilated room. That means it needs to either needs to have a window or it needs to have a fan, and it needs to be private, which means that there is a lock on the door. So bathrooms need to be have a locking mechanism, as well as have a fan or a window in order for it to be habitable. So those fans need to work. They might be noisy. I know I don't like the one in mine either, but it does need to. Whether or not they use it is a completely different story, but it does need to be there. But it is part of their responsibilities, which I'm going to share with you as well. There has to be a kitchen with a working sink. So I dug into this a little bit because I had the question a couple of years ago, is it part of habitability to provide a garbage disposal? And the answer is no, it is not part of habitability to provide a garbage disposal. However, if you do provide it, then you must maintain it. There is a movement to actually remove garbage disposals from our vocabulary. So it's kind of interesting to see how that's. I haven't seen a lot of movement on this movement, but there is a growing concern about the amount of waste that's going into the ocean from garbage disposal. So just that's a little tidbit for you, little, as my husband likes to call, a little fun fact. But you do have to provide a kitchen with a working sink. There has to be water and it has to be draining. Natural lighting in every room, which means there needs to be a window. So this gets really interesting for the people who are renting out their garages or basements or things like that. As far as habitability is concerned, there has to be some type of natural light, whether it be a skylight or windows. In order for it to be habitable for humans, there has to be natural lighting in every room. There also needs to be safe fire or emergency exits, and they need to be in good condition. So people need to know how to get out, where to go in case of a fire. There also needs to be smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, if applicable. I know that some apartment communities do not qualify or are not required to have carbon monoxide detectors, but anywhere where there's any kind of natural gas or gas that's into the building, then you would need to have those carbon monoxide detectors. So if you have an all-electric apartment, chances are you do not need to have the carbon monoxide detectors. But I would say, and this is just a professional and personal opinion, that I would probably still have them just because it would be my luck that something would happen and somebody would turn us in for not having the right detectors. So it would not do you any harm to install those, even if you are all electric. And then the last one, which I always found interesting, is a locking mail receptacle for each residential unit. So again, these are all of the owner responsibilities when it comes to habitability. So I'm just going to check the chat, see if there's any questions. Don't have anything right now. Okay, then I'm going to keep going. Anything? We're good. All right, so I'm going to keep going and now talk about the tenant responsibilities, because yes, even though the burden is on us to make certain that the apartment remains habitable, the tenants also have some responsibilities too. So I have something in the chat. In the Antelope Valley, yes, in the Antelope Valley, because of the, I would check with your city. I believe that's all Los Angeles County, but you can check with your city individually to determine if it is required, if it's considered part of habitability. I know that our buildings in the Antelope Valley all are equipped with air conditioning. Oh, there was another one. Whoops, I missed it. Sorry, you guys. Hold on. Chat. Here we go. Nope. Oh, here we go. Okay. Does the bathroom lighting need natural lighting? It needs to be ventilated. So it can either have a window or a fan. So it doesn't have to, it can have a window or a fan, one or the other. So it doesn't need natural lighting. Great question. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going. Then we're talking about the tenants. All right, so they do have responsibilities. It's not just for us. So we look at this, it says, tenants are required by law to take reasonable care of their rental unit, as well as common areas such as hallways and outside areas. Yay, this is part of the habitability element. Tenants must also act to keep those areas clean and undamaged. And tenants also are responsible for repair of all damage that results from their neglect or abuse, and for repair of damage caused by anyone for whom they are responsible, such as family, guests, or pets. So I am so happy to share this information with you, because even though all of your residents are on a rental agreement, there's many times when they say, no, that doesn't count. That's not real. That's your responsibility. Well, guess what? You now know that this is part of one of the elements of habitability. So you have this is another tool for your tool chest. So here's what the tenants are responsible for. This is a pretty lengthy list too. They are responsible to keep the premises as clean and sanitary as the condition of the premises permits. I like that, how they say that. Also, they use and operate gas, electrical, and plumbing fixtures properly. Examples of this would include improper use, including overload electrical outlets, flushing large foreign objects down the toilet, and allowing allowing any electrical or plumbing fixture to become filthy. So, or gas, electrical, or plumbing fixture to become filthy. This is a really good point here because a lot of it, I know that when I was on site, there were many times we would, if people flushed something down the toilet that wasn't supposed to be there, we typically gave them one time, but the second time they had to pay for it, for any kind of repairs that we had to do on that. So it is their responsibility to understand, not overloading electrical outlets. So I know when I had inspections by my lenders, I was with we used to call it CHAFA, now it's called Cal HFA. But one of the things that our inspector would always look at was how many extension cords people were using. So I always thought, well, gosh, this guy is really picky. And now, later in my career and all the research I've done, I realized it's because it's a fire hazard. And that's why they don't want our residents to use electrical extension cords. So that makes sense. This is their responsibility. It's also their responsibility to dispose of trash and garbage in a clean and sanitary manner. Yay, you guys, we have this. We have this at our disposal, no pun intended, but we have this that we can use if we're having trouble with residents who don't understand that this is their responsibility. Their responsibility is not destroy, damage, or deface the premises or allow anyone else to do so. To not remove any part of the structure, dwelling unit, facilities, equipment, or appurtenances, which is anything affixed to it, or allow anyone else to do so. So I think that my on-site experience trained me to have so many different stories. And we all know as managers, you can't make this stuff up. But I actually had somebody when we did a move out, and I went to go walk the unit with my maintenance supervisor, and they took out all the kitchen and bathroom drawers. They were gone. And like I said, every time you think you've seen it all, you're like, what is happening here? And I remember standing there being completely perplexed as to why somebody would steal the drawers. And my maintenance guy just says, oh, Angel, they just didn't want to pack. And I thought, well, okay, that's a clever solution, but they're going to pay for each and every one of those drawers because they're not supposed to be removing any of this. Crazy, right? Like I said, every time you think you've seen it all, you see something else. All right, so what's next? Use the premises as a place to live and use the rooms for their intended purposes. For example, the bedroom must be used as a bedroom and not as a kitchen. So if they have a hot plate or a hibachi or something like that in their bedroom, that would be against habitability. And then they also need to notify us. It's an element of habitability for their responsibility is to notify us when deadbolt locks and window locks or security devices don't operate. Be telling us. It's in the statute that they are supposed to be telling us if things don't work so that we can fix them, so that when they stop paying rent, they don't get to go to the court and say, oh, it's uninhabitable. They never fixed anything. So all of these are elements of the tenant responsibilities and the owner responsibilities. So I hope this was helpful to you because every time I read these, I get renewed a sense of, okay, the tenants do have a responsibility. Maybe they don't know it and maybe they're not aware of it, but there are elements of habitability that absolutely have the tenant responsibility involved. Okay. Can tenants have cameras on their doors? Well, they can have the cameras inside their apartments. They can have them on their doors if it doesn't face another front door. So if it only faces a wall or a balcony or a patio or something like that, then most jurisdictions will say they can, but it would only, if it would be recording somebody else going in and out of their home, then no, they couldn't have it. And interestingly enough, the way I'm training all of my maintenance staff right now is expect that you are on camera inside that apartment at every single time, every single moment that you're there. There's probably cameras. So while I think that's a little weird because I've been in this business for so long, I also think that it's probably not a bad idea that that's how we train everybody to say, hey, whatever you do, you're probably being filmed. But to answer your question again, only if it's not affecting anybody else's entrance. So I wanted to find something to kind of cement why habitability is so important. Oh, let's see. You're welcome. As to why this is such an important topic. So I found this. I thought this was really telling. Look at this. A jury awarded 1.6 million to a single family in Los Angeles County in Los Angeles County in 2018. This was the largest U.S. bed bug award. Happened right here, right in Los Angeles County. In 2015, nearly 100 tenants were awarded 2.18 million in a settlement involving allegations of cockroach infestations, in addition to heating, plumbing, and electrical issues. So it's important to understand the habitability portion of this, as well as what we do as far as inspections to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our properties habitable, to keep them as safe as we can, to keep them as clean as we can, and habitable. Okay, that's a lot of money. I know that my company wouldn't want to pay anything like this out. I know yours doesn't either. So these are real life numbers here. Yes, so you're asking, so bell ringers, I think you're meaning like a doorbell, would not be allowed if you have a unit across. That is correct. That is correct. If there's a unit directly across, then that would not be allowable. And I believe you can get that information directly from your city, but or even if you want, I can get you the information on it if you need it. Okay. Yes, you're so welcome. Thank you for the question. All right, so that's habitability. That's a big topic. We could probably spend all day just on that, but we're not. Okay, if the tenant constantly has pest control issues, even after pest control has been contracted for the unit, what do we do? Well, you might need to have, it might be coming from other units as well. Their unit might be okay, but it might be coming from other units where you're gonna have to do a little bit more forensic digging in to see what's going on. Because like, especially with cockroaches, if it's and bed bugs, if they're coming from other units, then you might have to do an entire building. So in the case, I'm thinking that you'd probably need to do some kind of investigation as to what else is going on, as far as what other units might have the same infestation. Oh, this is okay. So I've got an anonymous attendee, and I want to make sure it's okay that I read. This is great. This is great information. So somebody is saying that as a former code enforcement officer, they've received complaints on many of the items that I just reviewed. Now, not that I'm happy that you received the complaints, but this tells me I'm on the right track. Yay. So apartment staff should be reminded that once the city or county gets involved in a property maintenance case, that they should really act. Thank you for this, that you need to act as quickly as you can. I appreciate this this question that came in, and I want to reiterate that once you get a complaint on it, you need to act on it. So don't wait till the city or county gets in. We have to step in. If you want, I'm one of those people. I'm a diehard property manager. Yeah, I do the training now, but I have been a property manager for all of my life, literally since I was a teenager. So if we were going to do this, we should do a good job at it. And the biggest part of that is making sure that people are living in environments that are safe and clean and habitable. So thank you for from the former code enforcement officer for sharing that, because I am so with you on this. What we need to do is make sure that this is happening before it gets to the city level. Okay, more chats, hold on. All right. Can doorbells with video recorders be placed when a unit is across the hall if the camera is not facing the other unit's door? In my experience, as long as it's nobody else is being faced by that, then it should be fine. Our cameras, As of the range, they're across the unit, okay, if it's not stated on the lease. No, this becomes to a privacy issue, which, like I said, I can get the information for you on that, but it does become a privacy issue. Do I approve or suggest the use of integrated pest management? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. So inspection and maintenance of the property. So again, the best way to stay ahead of problems is to walk the entire property every day, preferably in the morning before you open the office, before it's too hot. But you also want to go out throughout the day, not just in the morning, because all kinds of things happen during the day. Your inspection is going to be much more efficient if you work from the top to the bottom. In other words, if you have a plan, you should have a plan. Start here, go all the way here, and then come back here. And then the next time, start here, go the other way. I really believe in having those cross references when it comes to the inspection, having that alternative plan. Okay. Yes, you're so welcome. Yes. Like I said, I will get you the privacy information. I just don't have it at the tip of my fingers right now. All right. Okay, so let's look at what this means. So walking the property regularly, let's just all take a deep breath. Yes, this is something we have to do. This is the only way you're going to stay on top of any kind of deferred maintenance, preventive maintenance, health and safety issues. You have to be out there. And there are so many reasons why you need to be out there. Okay, another question. Okay, so and this is another great example. When tenants move out, this may lead to the trash or dumpster areas to be overloaded. When trash is discarded into furniture, oh my gosh, I don't understand. In all my years, I've never understood why people think it's okay to put a sofa in the dumpster area, but that's just me. Code enforcement staff understands that tenants come and go, but it becomes tiresome when complaints come from the same few apartment communities. So clearly there's people who are not paying attention. So yeah, that's a great, thank you for your insight on that. I do appreciate it. So again, walking the property regularly. Why do we need to do this? Well, for starters, they ensure that the community is inviting. It looks inviting. It should look, the community is inviting. It should look good. I mean, honest to goodness, if people are going to be moving in there, don't you want them to feel good about where they live? I do. It doesn't matter what their income bracket is or what your set asides are. Everybody deserves decent, safe, clean, inviting housing. So it makes sure that the community is inviting. Any tour path that you use, if you're showing a vacant apartment, I know that in our side of the business, we don't have models, but we do show vacant apartments. So any tour path should be free of litter and well maintained. And in addition to that, let me hop into a leasing mode for just a moment. If you are showing a vacant apartment, the first time you show it for the day should not be the first time that you're in it for that day. So many things can happen overnight. We all know what can happen. Infestations of pests, somebody could break in, there could be a water leak, and you do not want the first time you open that door with your future resident with you to have it look like that. So before the office opens or at the time that it opens, if you will be showing a vacant apartment that day, you need to go make sure that vacant apartment is worth showing. Okay, and the path there doesn't have beer bottles from the night before or Taco Bell wrappers or chicken wings or whatever it is, all stuff that we've all seen out on the sidewalks. And I only say chicken wings because I went to get gas this morning and I saw somebody left chicken wings. Are you guys like me where whenever you're anywhere, the property manager in you comes out and you're just like, shame on you, somebody needs to come pick up these chicken wings. My poor husband lives with it every day. Inspections help find maintenance issues before they become costly. That is so important. You have to be looking at this with an eye of what could happen instead of what's happening right now. You might see something, but then you might see what could that lead to that could cost us even more money. And again, inspections should be done through the eyes of the resident and of the future resident. What are they seeing that would cause them to not want to live there? What are they seeing? They're looking for their home. And I think that's probably one of the things we often forget is that this isn't a unit to them. This is their home. And for many of us, I lived on site for many years. It was my home too. So you really have to look at it through how a new person would be looking at, or how a resident sees it. If they wake up in the morning and there's debris and there's sofas in the dumpster areas, and it takes till 11 o'clock for somebody to clean up the grounds, I wouldn't want to live there. And you probably wouldn't want to either. So we really need to look at it through their eyes as well. And property managers and maintenance staff should be doing inspections daily. Property managers shouldn't be the only ones doing it, and maintenance shouldn't be the only ones doing these inspections, because we see things differently. A manager might see things more on the marketing side, where maintenance might see something more on the technical side. So you put the two together, and that's what makes the magic. That's what makes the magic when it comes to inspections. Yes, I can make inspections magical. All right. Monthly inspections help to schedule corrective, routine, and preventive maintenance. So there's daily inspections that you would do every day just to make sure everything looks great. And then you want to also do some deeper inspections like your monthly ones, which we'll get into in just a few moments. So you've got daily, we talked about monthly, and now we're going to talk about annual inspections. So these can help estimate costs for budgets and make decisions about capital improvements. So the length of the inspection and the depth of the inspection is going to depend on what you're looking for. Excuse me, everybody else has allergies. Everybody has allergies this year. Oh my goodness, sorry. So it really depends on what you're looking for. So a daily, you're looking for things that can be fixed, that need to be corrected immediately. On a monthly, you're looking for things, items and things that need to be corrected, maybe on a bigger scale. But the annual ones are typically done for budgets, and you're really looking for anything that you might need to do to put in your capital improvement. All inspections should be documented. So here's the greatest thing about technology. You don't have to get a pen and paper anymore. Oh my gosh, I wish I had a nickel for every inspection form I filled out in my career. But you can now actually use technology. There is, and I'm not endorsing any single one, but one that I do, I really like Snap Inspect. There's a free, it's an app that you can get on your phone. It's free, but you're better off paying the $9.99 to subscribe to it. You can upload pictures, you can send it to your regional. There's just so many great things about these different technologies that you can use. There's another one, I think it's called Site Audit Pro. So anyway, just look into the technology. And the one thing is make sure you're documenting it. Even if it's still better for you to write it, take pictures. It's so easy now. We all have cell phones. We all are able to share the information that we gather. It's the one thing I do like about the technology. And then remember that property inspections really are the key to making sure the community looks its best at all times. All right, so there's another question. If the building has installed security cameras in the hallways that include coverage of the apartment's front doors, is that a privacy violation? No. From what I understand, no, it's not. But like I said, I can pull this for you. I can pull the information for you and get it to you. I've had that question before where people say, well, we install cameras. That is, from what I know, from what I understand, that is a different privacy issue. We install the cameras in order to ensure a sense of safety, if you will. And even though the residents do, those are our apartments, so we do have some say-so over that. But I promise I can get that information for you. And my email is at the end of this, so I can email you directly if you want to. Okay, so let's talk about conducting inspections. So this allows you to observe the life cycle of your building. So it is important that you're looking at the building at different times of the day, at different times of the year. And there's a lot of reasons for that, because as seasons change, so do your buildings. And so does what you're inspecting. Develop a checklist to ensure that nothing's overlooked. I'm going to share with you our checklist too. That's what, thank you, Dakota, private property laws. Okay, thank you, perfect. Okay, so it is important, again, develop a checklist to ensure that nothing is overlooked. Like I said, I'm going to share that with you. It's a cut and paste, sorry, the best I can do. But I want to give you now some tips for walking the property. So this is the picture that came up when that Microsoft gave me on tips for walking the property. And I thought, I would like to have a property that had that walkway. So I kept it in here, even though it's probably not what our properties look like. Wouldn't that be great? But I think it's, again, just to understand some of the different tips that we have for each area. So let's start with take along the right keys during the inspection. You want to make sure that you have keys to utility rooms, to your pool equipment, to vacant apartments, to the maintenance shop, all of those things so that you don't have to stop and go back. So take along the appropriate keys. Be prepared to take notes on the condition of the property. That's probably, like I said, any way you do that, whether that be with an app on your phone, an iPad, a tablet, a good old piece of paper and a pen, whatever it is, make sure that you're taking notes. I personally am somebody, I love the Snap Inspect, but if I need to remember something, I need to ink it to think it. That's kind of one of my sayings, you need to ink it to think it. So for me, if I write it down, tendency not to forget. But that's just my method. But any way you're doing it, as long as you're doing it. Making sure that the property is free of litter, discarded furniture, like we were talking about, and abandoned vehicles. So I have been in the affordable housing arena for 25 years now. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary in affordable housing. And I can tell you that from day one, any lender who came out to inspect our property for anything was looking for abandoned vehicles and vehicles that weren't tagged and registered without current registration. So this is something that all lenders, all insurance companies, everybody looks for. So you want to make sure that you're taking notes of those and working on those as soon as you can. Inspect the maintenance workshops and the storage areas. This is a huge part of making sure that you are in compliance with OSHA. You need to make sure that your chemicals are being stored correctly, that you don't have turpentine and Clorox next to each other. So you want to make sure that you're inspecting those workshop areas and the storage areas that you may have. Whenever there's storage area that's overcrowded, that can cause all kinds of health and safety issues. So you need to be on top of it. And one of the things when I first came to this company and when I took over at Mountainside, there was a kind of a distrust of why I was coming to look at the maintenance. I was like, you're checking up on me. And kind of like, that's my job. Because guess what? My regional's job is to check on me. So if she wants to come out and look at your workshop and it's in bad condition, I'm the one who's going to be held liable for that. It's on me. So it took a little time to get maintenance on board with, hey, I am part of your team. I am here to make it better. I am here to make sure we all shine. And we're not going to be able to do that unless I have access to the maintenance workshop and the storage areas. So it's all part of becoming one team to make sure that your properties are running smoothly and that they're running in a safe manner too. Because when I first got there, I'm not kidding you guys, if you haven't looked at your property storage areas in a minute, you need to go do it. I found when we were replacing carpet, our service technicians were keeping the carpet, the old carpet, they were rolling it up and keeping it in our storage area and then taking it down to TJ to sell it. So, wow, make sure you're looking at everything so that you're not in that kind of situation. That was a fire hazard and it was filthy. All right, inspect your pool equipment and all the mechanical elements that surround the pool area. You should have a key to be able to go make sure it. You know what? I own a pool. I have a pool at my house, so I do know what it's supposed to look like. But in all honesty, most property managers don't understand how the filtration system works. At least take a good look at it, make sure it doesn't sound like it's got rocks in it, and make sure that the area is clean and free of debris, because that can be a big problem too. And have another employee inspect the property after you to ensure that everything is covered from another perspective. So one of the things I implemented when we had properties here in Rancho Cucamonga, we had 4 that were within like a mile of each other, a mile and a half, 2 miles of each other. So this takes a lot of trust, but I guarantee you that this can be very helpful. So with the 4 managers in Rancho, we used to switch off. We would once a month, we would go to somebody else's property and walk it for them. And it was so successful because they're going to see something that they don't see every day. And we see it every day. You're on your property every single day. You're going to see the same things. I think the concept is you don't see the forest because there's so many trees in it. So it becomes really important to get somebody else's perspective. That's why when a regional comes to look, it's not to be critical, it's to be helpful. So if you have a relationship with somebody else in the area, like a sister property, it takes some trust. I'm not going to lie, it does take some trust amongst the team, but it really can be very, very helpful to have somebody else look at it. All right, so before I go on, I have some questions. Let's see. I will use your quote to make sure I give you credit. Is it the ink it, think it? Yeah. Oh, ink it to sink it. Oh, yeah, that's good. Good. Ink it to think it or ink it to sink it? Okay, another issue that would come up would be inoperable vehicles and unpermitted storage in the parking lots. Sometimes an apartment community would store a metal container in the parking lot, no problem. But when apartment complexes store multiple containers, which take up valuable parking space, no kidding, no kidding. I had my community painted one time, exterior paint, and we stored the paint there in a large metal container, and that was just for a period of 3 months, and that was enough. So yes, I completely understand that. Thank you. All right. Okay, so let's look at what I want to do next is look at individual areas and what we need to look at. So your exterior lighting is probably one of the biggest areas of liability. So you want to make sure that you are looking at your exterior lighting. And I love to ask when I have a live audience to say, how often should you be looking at the exterior lighting? And I'll have people come up with, oh, we do a lights out report once a month. And I'm like, okay, nah, wrong answer. The answer is somebody should be looking at the lights every single day. So let's take a look at this. All areas of the property should have adequate lighting. There should be enough lighting to illuminate so that people can see steps and stairs and that there's no trip hazards. They should be able to see. Your monument signs should be well lit. Any of your common areas and walkways should be well lit. You need to be, one of the things I'll say that you need to be careful of, and I love this story, it's just a quick one, but when we, at Mountainside, when we were enhancing our building, we got new light fixtures. We were so excited because our old lights were dim. They were that yucky plastic balls that just that were over the light bulbs. They were old, the diffusers were old. It was just time for a change, and we were so excited. We got those cute ones that looked like an acorn. We were so excited. We got new bulbs in them. We did the first area at the front by the office, and it probably affected 4 buildings for where apartments were. And so we were so excited. The next morning, we come into the office, and there are like, I'm going to say 30 calls on the answering machine. We're like, what happened? And people were saying, oh my gosh, it is so bright, my kids can't sleep. Are you trying to, because we're not far from the Ontario airport. We actually had somebody, are you trying to divert traffic from the airport to land on our property? And people were just so upset at how bright it was. And of course, as a typical manager and typical staff, all day we're like, you just can't please anybody. First it's too dark, now it's too bright. There's no pleasing anybody, right? So we stayed after hours until it got dark, and I'll be darned, we could have diverted traffic from the airport. It was so bright. So we had to scale back on what we were doing as far as the wattage that we were using. It's just kind of a fun story that you know, when you think you're doing something all right, sometimes you need to take a step back and make sure that you do listen to your residents, because guess what? I wouldn't have been able to sleep in any of those buildings either. So adequate lighting is good. You don't want it so that you know, you're like going to burn from the sun. Anyway. All right. Lighting should be inspected at night and should be checked daily. That's another question I ask. When should the lighting be checked? It should be checked at night and daily. And anytime that there's a light out, it needs to be reported. It needs to be considered an emergency. And again, it should be at entrances, walkways, your parking areas, all your surrounding grounds, any of your amenities need to have be well lit as well. Lighting may help reduce crime on the property as well. People who have ill intent don't want there to be a lot of light. So it can help reduce crime. And you can consider using motion activated lighting to conserve energy costs and reduce some costs there. So those are some tips about exterior lighting. That's a big part of the inspections that you're doing. And listen, I was not keen on having to do a lot of nighttime inspections. That's why we had people who lived on site to do that. But it is something that is one of your most important areas that you check every day. All right, so let's move into landscaping. Isn't this pretty? Pretty shot there. So landscaping. So proper landscaping may also decrease crime. There is a very real thing called CPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. CPTED, CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design. So what this means is that you want to make certain, because some deferred landscaping can promote criminal activity. If you have bushes that are high enough to be at the bottom of a window, then it's very easy for someone to hide behind those bushes and get into that apartment. Or if you have branches that are low on your trees, then you would want to make certain that those are trimmed so it's not as easy for somebody to climb those trees and get in maybe to a second story. There's a lot of design elements that you can do with your landscaping to really prevent any kind of criminal activity and to make sure that the property still looks great. You should prune all trees and shrubs and keep trees trimmed, as well as removing tree roots. That's another big part of looking at your landscape. Tree roots can cause sidewalks to lift. I'm sure if any of you have a building that's more than a few minutes old, you know that this can happen. And when those sidewalks buckle, they absolutely, the concrete cracks. This can also be getting into your plumbing, and it can cause a huge trip and fall disaster, if you will. There's a case in California. It's quoted in one of my curriculums for one of the associations, where a sidewalk that was 1/2 inch out of alignment, 1/2 inch out of alignment was a 6-figure settlement. So a 1/2 inch equals 6 figures. That's how I always look at that. And so we have to remember that any kind of landscaping issues could absolutely be part of a health and safety issue. Remove trees that are touching the property roof, or if they're low hanging. Got to tell you, branches going against a roof, especially, and when's the time to inspect this? Now, before the Santa Anas. So we all know Southern California, we're gonna get those Santa Anas starting in September, October. They last all the way through December. This year they were in January. So you need to look at your tree branches now so that you can get those trimmed off. One of the worst things that you can do or you cannot do is to trim anything that's hitting a roof line. Those branches will take off your tiles like that. So you need to make certain that you're looking at those. Ensure that there are no overwatered areas or standing water on the property. So anywhere that's overwatered, that is going to lead to all kinds of, like, I like to call it the squishy grass when you walk on it and the water's everywhere. Standing, which could lead to deterioration of the grass itself. Any standing water could attract mosquitoes. Mosquitoes carry Zika virus and West Nile. So far, they haven't shown to be COVID, but you know what? Maybe they're the Delta. I don't know. Anyway, standing water attracts mosquitoes. And so you want to make certain that there isn't any standing water, or people could even slip on it. So there's all kinds of reasons to make sure that you're looking at your irrigation. Also, something too about irrigation, if you have, and I want you guys just kind of close your eyes and think about your building. Do you have any of those line marks against your stucco where the sprinkler's hitting? It effervesces. It actually, if the sprinklers hit the stucco for a long enough amount of time, it's going to discolor the stucco and it's going to effervesce, which is going to make it turn to powder and make the stucco fall off your building. So you need to make certain that you're looking at the irrigation. If you haven't taken the time to walk with your landscaper, it's a great idea to ask them, hey, walk me through when the irrigation goes on, how it goes on. Let's see if it's hitting any buildings or any cars. Gosh, when they hit the cars, people want to have their cars detailed after that, which it's hard to blame them. So make sure that there's no standing water. Make sure you're looking to make sure it's not hitting your building. I always do this because it has that fan motion. I know you all can envision this as you close your eyes, how it looks when the water hits the building. And then if you have gravel and rock, I would replace that with some kind of shredded material, simply because that could be dangerous. You don't want to give the residents any kind of ammunition. Right, there's a question here. Oh, okay, remind people that water running down the gutter is a violation of codes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So we need to be careful about that too. So overwatering can be just as big of a problem as underwatering, especially right now since we're in a drought again. All right, so this next picture is of something. This is just kind of fun to show you. This is called a Chinese silk floss tree. This tree, it was very, very popular in it's not native to California, but somebody brought it here, and it's beautiful from a distance. So if you look at the lower left picture, it is beautiful. These pink flowers are absolutely gorgeous from a distance. But before they're pink flowers, they are those white balls of silk up in there. And then their tree trunks have these thorns on them. So for some reason here in Southern California, I think in the early 80s, they must have been on sale because they are everywhere. They're everywhere. We had them on our properties. We had children getting hurt. We had, before they open up into that pretty silk thing, they are big pods. They look like big coconut pods. And we had one fall on a balcony. And the good news is it didn't hit the person on the balcony. It just hit their barbecue. I don't know if it really dented their barbecue, but we replaced it because we did not want to be liable for it. If you have these trees on your property, I highly recommend that you remove them. Once we had one of those big pods fall onto a balcony, we just went, ooh, yeah, we're removing all of that. It was a little costly, but it was worth it because those thorns are awful. This is called a Chinese silk floss tree. If you have them, you need to remove them. They are very dangerous and they can be causing you some liability. They really are pretty on the medians on our freeways. We like that. We like that. Okay, so the next area we're going to look at are the grounds or curb appeal and the different things that we need to be looking at. Isn't that a beautiful property? Great curb appeal here. It's really fun with some of the newer buildings. We're starting to see the oranges and the bright yellows as accent colors. Super fun. Super 2021, right? All right, so what are you looking at for the curb appeal? Again, you're looking for your landscaping. Now, this is the landscaping that I call in front of this is your marketing window. What does the landscaping look like in front of your office? Do you have fresh flowers? Are they still cute? Are they still pretty? I think that there's nothing uglier than petunias in August, because by August, they are so stringy and leggy, and they're trying to get out of the dirt and onto the sidewalk looking for water or something to put them out of their misery. So petunias don't always last that deep into the summer. A really good choice for Southern California, and there's so many different colors now, are the begonias. Those last almost all season, so that can be really good, or vincas too. But you're looking at, for curb appeal, you're looking to make sure that if you have mulch, that it's in place, that everything is trimmed nicely, that your flowers look good. The next one is signage. So when I got to Mountainside, our signage looked like a Duran Duran album cover. It was horrible. It was such an 8-track 80s flashback. So that was something that we had to take care of, because what had happened, that sign had been out there since the 80s, and it had been covered by landscape, by encroaching plant material, or it was being hit by the irrigation. And so you had half a sign. So you have to look at these things. How does this look to the person coming in? They want to be proud of where they live. Our residents are looking for a safe haven. A lot of our residents have come from places that they're not very proud of. When you think about what affordable housing provides, We want to give them a place where they feel good to come home, where they feel good to have their family and friends come visit them. So look at all of these things as you see them through their eyes. What is that signage? Is it crisp? Is it pristine? Is it legible? All of those things you're looking at for your signage. Is it appropriate? Flags. If you have flags, you need to make certain that they're in good condition. I don't think there's anything uglier than a flag that's all frayed. You guys know what I mean? Frayed at the end. And because I'm out, and if anybody on this call is in the Inland Empire, you totally understand this. The 15 corridor, anybody who has flags down the 15 probably has a huge flag budget because it is so windy out here. And so their flags, not only do they fade, but they get frayed on the end. So if you are allowed to have flags, please make sure that they are in really excellent condition, like the ones here are absolutely beautiful. The balloon bobblers are a great way to attract attention and just make things pretty as well. But just make sure that your flags are in good condition. If they're not, it looks like you don't care because they should do that. Also, I'll give you a little tip. I actually won a rookie award at a conference for this one. My idea was to match your seasonal flags with your annual color. So if you had pink, white, and purple flags, then you should have pink, white, and purple flowers. It was a beautiful thing. It was just a fun thing that I was able to be involved in. But when you think about it, how cute would it be if underneath these flags you had some red, yellow, and white flowers? For marketing purposes, those are great colors anyway, but it would just tie everything all together like the balloons do. All right, so now what else is next? Oh, exterior paint. You want to look at the paint to see what kind of condition the paint is in. You want to look at your lighting again with the curb appeal. When we're talking about curb appeal, are those diffusers clean? Are there spider webs around the entrances to your office? But the spiders love our lighting, so we need to make sure that there's not any spider webs, dust, things like that on the way for the people coming in. And then, like I said, overall cleanliness. That's what curb appeal is. So making sure that you're looking at overall cleanliness. Okay, another question. Okay, it says, please remind attendees that grand opening flags should not stay up for 12 to 18 months. I think if you can still have now leasing and brand new can still be up there if you are still leasing and you're brand new, but I think the grand opening goes on overkill. That's interesting. Okay, I actually saw one. I saw a sign. I'll have to try to remember what it said. It was because I'm a property manager, whenever I see signs or whenever I'm traveling, I take pictures of things. And there was a sign that was, it was in March. It was March. I was in Waco, Texas, and I was driving around and I saw an apartment building sign that said January free rent. So it was something that they had a sign that was up there probably since November that they hadn't taken down. So yeah, pay attention to what's out there. Absolutely. Okay, so the building exterior, let's talk about building exterior. And again, if we were all just to kind of take a deep breath but by the grace of God go I with this horrible tragedy that's happening and unfolding every day in Miami. I think that I hope, it's my hope, my sincere hope that all of us are taking our exterior building inspections a lot more seriously at this point after seeing what happened there. So Bill, what are we looking for? So when you're looking at your exterior, here's a few things that you want to look at. You want to look, like we were talking about at the beginning, stairs and hallways should be clean and well maintained. What else? Check for loose threads on carpeting. That can be very dangerous. As a woman who wears heels every single day, if I get hooked on some kind of carpet, I'm going to go face down. And I've already done that once. I don't need to do that again. So make sure that there aren't any loose threads in the carpeting in your hallways or in your common areas in your office, places like that. You want to look for cracks in the concrete, because cracks in the concrete they can be so detrimental. So, and I'm just going to say it again, this is what happened in Miami. If you do not listen to the news and go on to some of the other sites and listen to what people are saying, the inspectors are saying, there were cracks. There were a lot of cracks in the concrete all over that building. And water is mysterious and determined. And water goes wherever it wants to. And water can't even be held back by a dam. So if there's a crack in the concrete, water is going to find it, and it's going to compromise the integrity of the infrastructure of the building. So if you see a crack in the concrete, you need to report it. It can be a simple fix. It could be even something like putting silicone caulking in it can fix it as a short-term fix, but just really look at those cracks in the concrete, especially in light of what we've seen recently. So keep handrails clean and splinter free. I know this from firsthand experience. I had a resident come to me, and she had just gotten back from the emergency room with her son. And she said to me, I just want you to know that, and she gave me this piece of wood. And honestly, you guys, I'm gonna say it was probably about this big. You guys can see that, probably about this big, this piece of wood. She goes, we just had to take this out in the emergency room out of my son's hand. He had been running down the banister and somehow got it caught in the palm of his hand. I still cringe every time I think about this. And I was shocked. I was mortified. I was so sad. I said, well, here, let me start an incident report. She goes, listen, she goes, I just want you to know about it. She goes, I don't need you to do anything but fix it. She goes, I have insurance. He was not supposed to be outside anyway, so he's grounded. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of information, a lot of getting me off the hook on something. She was totally cool. We all wish all of our residents were like that, right? But what that prompted us to do was to go look at every single handrail in our entire portfolio. She was the coolest resident ever. When I could have cloned her, I would have, for all y'all. But she just wanted us to fix it. So those splinters we have to be very careful, because over time, wood gets dry rotted and things happen. Our buildings age, and due to their condition, we might need to go in and look at those kinds of things. So inspect those handrails regularly to ensure they are stable. It's probably not a bad idea for me to mention to everybody that you only have 2 years left, 2 or 3 years left on the deck inspections that are due for the state of California. So that is also coming up in the next few years. So every deck or balcony needs to be inspected by an outside architect or contractor. Check if the concrete stairs are sturdy as well. Anytime those treads start to get loose, you need to look at that. If there's I think you also want to talk about the concrete steps where there's open air underneath. There's a lot of times where you'll see those concrete steps, they might toggle a little bit, and they might even have chips of concrete coming off of them. That would be a big concern, something you want to look at right away. And you want to implement a policy to keep patios and balconies free of litter, clutter, and any indoor furniture. Most fires are started on balconies or patios because somebody puts a couch out there instead of patio appropriate furniture. You want to make certain that they're not storing their recycling on your patio. Yay, they're recycling. Boo, recycling attracts insects. You want to make sure that they're not using their patio or balcony as a real storage area. It needs to be only patio or balcony appropriate furniture. The other thing you want to make sure is that they're not putting their towels over your balconies and patios, because if they're wood, that's going to actually cause dry rot. So you need to be careful of that too. All right, what's next? Exterior maintenance. Okay, so what are we looking at with the exterior maintenance? So you want to inspect asphalt for cracks as well and potholes to reduce trip hazard. We live in an area of extreme weather. It gets really hot, then it gets pretty cold in contrast. So because asphalt is a petroleum product, it's going to heat, it's going to expand, it's going to do this. There's actually a term for that. So when you look at your concrete and it's all, or your asphalt and it's all cracked up, it's called alligatoring, if you didn't know that. So somebody dropped me a line if that's a new term for them, but it is called alligatoring. And once it starts to alligator, that means it's going to either need a new slurry or it needs to be taken down and completely redone. So because all of that alligatoring is compromising what's underneath it. And again, water can get in there and compromise. I've actually seen carports sink because the asphalt was compromised. So not only does it cause water intrusion, it can trip hazards are big with that kind of alligator effect. Ensure all cars are registered and in good condition. Remove any water, loose gravel, or litter on sidewalks. Inspect sidewalks for separation and uneven pieces, like we talked about before. And ensure that your fencing is up to city ordinance and complies with state and local codes. You also, well, we'll talk about that in common areas, but you have to make sure your gates are in good condition too. So I think that's it for this one. I'll keep going. Your common areas. So let's think about the common areas that we have. So some tips for inspecting the common areas. You want to keep your amenities secure, well maintained, and of course, inviting. Make sure that all areas have signage that are properly worded. That can get us in a lot of trouble with fair housing. So if you have a pool or a spa, you want to make sure that you have the proper signage about that unaccompanied minors under the age of 14 should be accompanied, or minors under the age of 14 should be accompanied by a adult. It doesn't have to be parent. It doesn't have to say parent or guardian. You want to make sure that you do not have any signs that say no children allowed on the sidewalks, things like that. You be very careful with your signage, especially with your common areas and your amenities. Clean and inspect your laundry rooms multiple times a day. Laundry rooms are a grave center of liability. For some reason, not all of them, but many people who use common area laundry rooms believe that the floor is where lint goes. So we need to make certain that we are looking, that we're in there several times a day to clean it up, to make sure that it's not getting overwhelmed with lint. The other thing you need to look at is to make sure that, I think I have, yeah, that we'll get there, but making sure that the room is clean. There's so much dust and lint that builds up in exhaust fans and lint traps and things like that, that it could vary a lot of fires start in laundry rooms. So we want to make sure that our laundry rooms are very clean and very well maintained. Ensure that your emergency exit signs are in good condition. People know where to go. Ensure that there's no trip and fall hazards. And again, lighting is good condition in all of your amenities. And you want to verify that your electrical cords are properly grounded. So interestingly enough, when in our common area laundry rooms, the plugins are visible. They're right there. They're where people can see them and touch them. So, and a lot of the times they are just caked with lint and dirt. So these are the kinds of things we need, those eagle eyes that we need to be looking at, is to make certain that we are looking and are cleaning those off and dusting those off, because that can start a fire very easily. Another area is checking your playgrounds. So, or any other amenities you have. The playgrounds, in my experience, the small children play on them for a couple hours a day, but once the sun goes down, that's where all the teenagers hang out. So you want to make sure that your playground areas are monitored and that they are well lit in the evening, and that you have somebody cleaning them every day as part of the grounds cleaning. There have been instances, several, where needles were found in the playground area. We've seen a lot of unmentionable things that teenagers use in the area, like drug paraphernalia, other things I'm not going to mention. Let your imagination go. Empty beer bottles, things like that. Even in the tubes where kids can slide down, we have found graffiti inside the tube. So our littles aren't doing that. That's the teenagers. So we have to make sure that we are inspecting that. Any kind of amenity that you have. If you have a bark park, if you have any kind of sport court, swimming pool, spa, tennis court, basketball, whatever it is that you have on your property, you need to make certain that you are checking that area on a daily basis. All right. Now let's go into the mechanical systems. Oh, there it is in the chat. Okay. Playgrounds, razors and mulch or wood chips. Yes, Juan, yes, that's exactly what we've seen. Unbelievable how people, I mean, I'm never going to understand why people would do that, but yes, people actually will put razors in that. That's a whole different seminar. All right, okay, so what is next? Mechanical systems. Okay, so here's some tips on what you're looking at. Again, you're looking at the pool and spa equipment. If it's making a sound like it's rattling, then there's probably something wrong with the equipment. Most importantly, like I said before, you want to make sure that it's clear of debris so it doesn't get caught up in any of it. You want to make sure that you're looking at your filters. If you have a pool inspection person or a pool contractor that comes out to clean your pools, there's nothing wrong and there's everything right with going with them one day and just saying, hey, let me see what you're doing. Let me see what the condition is of our equipment, because they'll come to you and tell you there's something wrong, but you're going to want to take a good look at that. So look at the pool equipment, make sure that you understand how it works. You want to look at your fire extinguishers. You want to make sure that they have a full charge, and you want to be looking at their annual inspection date. So one thing I learned about fire extinguishers is that they too have an expiration date on actually being able to hold a charge. So you want to, I know that they'll hold a charge for a good 9 to 10 years, but once they start getting to that 10 to 11 year age group, they start not being able to hold their charge for the whole year. So something we do is we put it in our capital improvement plans for like every 10 years to systematically go through and replace the fire extinguishers. They don't have their lifespan is not, 25 or 30 years. So check your fire extinguishers and make sure you don't go past that date either. Oh, law requires that you're replaced every 12 years. I did not know that one. Thank you. So that's a good reason to check them. If they're going to be replaced every 12 years. You don't want to be the person who doesn't have that replaced. Okay, inspect the utility rooms. Sometimes we call them dog houses. Wherever it is where you have your electrical panels, your meters, those kinds of things for your residents, you want to look in there too. Make sure that they actually are clear of debris and that we're not using those for storage rooms and that they're actually locked. So it'd be your utility rooms. Know when your backflow inspection is, when it's due, and plan accordingly. I do know that there are a limited number of people who are qualified to do backflow inspections, so you want to get on their schedule as soon as you can, at least 90 to 120 days out. And if you have elevator rooms, you want to make sure that you're inspecting those too. So anything that has any kind of mechanical, if you have boiler rooms, that's like your utility rooms, you want to be looking at all of these, just again, inspecting them. Are you inspecting these every single day? No, but these are the things you really should be looking at on a regular basis, more of a monthly basis, to look at all of these items to make sure that they don't get out of hand. All right, the pool and the spa. Isn't this a pretty property? But doesn't that look like we just all want to jump in there? That looks like a resort. All right, so what are we looking at for the pool and the spa? Well, first things, we want to make sure the gates are operational with self-closures. You don't want to be the property that has an incident where a child gets in because the gate wasn't closed. We hear about these incidents all too often. And it's a tragedy when a child gets into a pool area and drowns. So you want to make sure that your fences are in compliance and to code, and make sure your gates are operational. During the heavy months of the pool, it's a good idea to go out there several times during the day and make sure that those gates are actually closed, because your residents probably never do anything like this, but my residents used to prop it open so their friends could get in. Just saying. Yours would never do that, I'm sure, but mine did. Display your pool rules, including the hours and the proper attire and prohibited practices. Making sure that people are actually wearing swimsuit material so that those fibers don't get caught in your filter and damage your motors. That can happen. If you do not have a lifeguard, then it is required that you have a no lifeguard on duty sign that's posted and visible. And you want to make sure that all your pool furniture is clean and in good repair. So back, seems like a million years ago when I was on site, All the rage was the resin furniture because it was inexpensive and it stacked easily. And it seemed like it was going to last forever. At least that's what we thought. The resin furniture, if it's not properly maintained and if it is left out all season, all year, actually gets pretty brittle and it can crack. And I can never forget and unsee when a resident came into me and promptly showed me her backside where she had sat on one of our chase lounges that looked fine but was brittle. And when she sat in it, the chase lounge actually kind of bit her tushy. And that's what's very, very bad for us. So you want to make sure that that furniture, give it a test, sit in it, or at least check it, make sure that it's still in good condition. The ones with the plastic straps can also become compromised. So you want to make sure that your furniture is in good condition from season to season. And make certain that your chemical limits and levels in the pool and spa meet some specific requirements. It's not a bad idea to actually know how to check your chemicals. So I would say every property manager should take a 5-minute class from your pool supplier or your maintenance guy, just so that you can do it in case you need to. It's not a bad idea. All right, so the next one is apartment interiors. So there's a lot of different times that we have the necessity to get into the apartments, but the very best time to perform inspections is at the time of turnover, when the apartment is vacant. That's the best time to look at it. Now, does that mean you're never going to look at it another time? Of course not. But this gives you the opportunity to get in there and really look at what you need to do. So some of the things that you need to look at are electrical outlets. You want to make sure that they're in good condition. You want to make certain that they are there's appropriate number. Look at the windows. Make sure that they can still be locked. Make sure that they're sealing correctly. Doors, do they still fit? Are they warped? Can you see a light at the end or around or anywhere? What's the weather stripping look like? The HVAC systems, are they working? Your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, you want to check to make sure that they are operable. The hot water heaters, make certain that they are at the maximum, which, by the way, for residential, they should not be any hotter than 120. Look at the gas lines, look at the plumbing, look at or check for any moisture and musty odors and discoloration. These are all things you're looking for. And by the way, just to backtrack for the pool and spa cannot be more than 104. You want to make sure it does not go over 104. Inspect for bed bugs or other infestations and schedule pest control. If you go back to one of those first slides that I showed you, the bed bug lawsuits are out there and they are big. And this is a huge problem in our industry. So you want to make sure that you're looking for them, making sure you have somebody come in. We have, after every move out, we have the pest control system, where I think it was mentioned earlier, where they inspect and treat on every move out. And don't forget to rekey that unit immediately. There's an implied warranty that when you give somebody new keys or keys to their new apartment, that those locks have been changed. Can you imagine the disaster of not changing the locks and having somebody who the prior resident gave an old boyfriend a key to, and he decides to come back and visit her, and she doesn't live there anymore, and he walks in on your new resident? That would not be pretty for you. So that's one of the first things you should do, is rekey the unit. All right, so it was I wanted to get in a move out inspection form so you can see how detailed it is. So I just kind of did some copy and pasting of what we look at. So if you look at this, you can see that we look at anywhere. We start at the front door, we look at the condition, weather stripping, we look at the peephole and the passage locks, front door and patio. Then we go into the mechanical areas where we look at the thermostat, the smoke alarm. I think that's been updated now to say carbon monoxide as well. We look at the breakers. Going into the kitchen, we examine all the GFEI switches, the cabinets, drawers, dishwasher. I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see that we are really forensic. We look at absolutely everything. The disposal insert. We even look at the baseboards to make sure that they're in good condition. So everybody has something that they look, that's their pet peeve or the thing that they look at the most in a vacant apartment. Mine is baseboards. If those baseboards are dirty, I am mad. Like, and when they turn it over, when people paint over the dirty baseboards, that's one of those pet peeves I have. But to continue this, we look at the privacy locks. You can see there's in here we're looking at everything: the bathrooms, the faucets, the tub faucets, the pop-ups, the tub drains, the shower head, if it's in good condition, toilet tank, toilet bowl, baseboards again, my baseboards, ceiling fan, light bulbs. It's very thorough. It's a very thorough form. And on the last page, we, this is what do we need to do? Do we need to paint, carpet? What is it that we need to do in order to make this apartment acceptable again? Okay, so cool stuff. Cool stuff. All right. Any questions on this? I don't see anything in the chat. This is probably something you all are working with on a regular basis. So if you do need one of these forms, please don't hesitate to email me and I can send them to you. All right, next we're almost done. We're going into our capital improvement plan and some tips for this one. So with your capital improvement plan, first of all, capital improvements need to be big ticket items that meet the legal definition of capital expense. So in other words, you can't just want something to want it. It actually has to meet the definition of capital expense. So one of those elements of capital improvements is it has to improve the life of the building. It has to be an expenditure that's made for a permanent fixture, not a removable item. What else do I have on here? So let me give you some examples. I want to go back. So pool furniture is not a capital expense. It might be an expensive investment, but it's not capital because it can be removed. It can be removed from the property. But if you were going to do capital, here's some examples. The asphalt, significant pool repair, not the pool furniture, but the pool repair. Exterior paint improves the life and it's permanent. HVAC replacement can be considered capital, as well as flooring and appliances and water heaters and boiler systems. So all of these are things that are, they improve the life of the building and it's not necessarily removable. So different companies and different philosophies have what that threshold could be. So it could be, depending on where you are, it could be what your threshold is what that significant dollar amount is. Again, that's something that's company specific and it has to work with your IRS guidelines. So whatever is out there, whatever you're using is more than appropriate, I'm sure. So just make sure that you understand when you're asking for a capital improvement that it has to meet the definition of a capital improvement. All right. So I am not the React queen. We have other people in our company that are the React queens and kings. But I did want to just talk a little bit about that because I know that in affordable housing, that this is something that we have to prepare for. And there is copious amounts of information about this on the HUD website. So what I did is I went to my compliance department and said, what kind of information can I share that would be helpful? And the first thing that they wanted to make, that they told me was that prior to the REAC inspection, but prior to the date, you should conduct your own complete 100% inspection of the property. And a complete 100% includes all 5 of the inspectable areas. So that would be the site itself, all building exteriors, all building systems, all common areas, and all units. So I thought that was really hand in hand with my topic of how to, the tips for walking the property and looking at everything. Everything that I've talked about relates to everything on these inspectable areas. So it does kind of go hand in hand. They also shared with me this, which I know that's really tiny writing, but this is the areas that they have seen the most discrepancies and where there are points taken away. So you'll see that the number one thing is doors. So damaged hardware or locks are the number one area of a discrepancy. So it goes from doors to the kitchen, windows, doors, windows, walls, smoke detectors, bathroom items. So I wanted to include this so that you could see that when you're doing your inspections, these are some more items that are being found to be a discrepancy. And so these are the things you want to pay closest attention to. So where can you get more information about this? This is a very long link, but you guys, being in affordable housing, you probably already have this link. So you want to make sure that you're able to get in on the HUD website, and they would probably be able to put you in the right direction. Okay. All right. So it's a lot of information. I understand that, but we have to remember that the property inspections is one of the most important functions that we do as property managers. So the property inspections continue to be your number one strategy in reducing risk and maintaining the value of the asset. Never forget that at the end of the day, this is an asset that you're maintaining. This is an investment. And if you are not paying attention to the investment, then that investment could lose value. And nobody wants us to lose value in these investments. These are people's, on top of being an investment, these are also where people live. You have to remember, people are living their lives behind these doors, and they want to live again in a safe and decent, clean, sanitary environment. And so by us being out there is something that shows. Also, here's another thing, by being out there, it keeps you visible. I think I have it in the next one. Regular inspections will keep the property in good condition, and it keeps you visible to your residents. It gives you the opportunity to create rapport with your residents, to see them on a human level. So by going out there, by talking to them, by saying hello when you're out there, it shows your visibility on the property, and while at the same time you're still looking to maintain the assets in that habitable condition. All right, so that's it. It was a lot to cover. That's it. I don't always look like that picture, clearly. But let's see. I'm going to go into the chat and see what we have here. To confirm, if a unit has a heater system, it should work. Yes. Yes, if there's a heater, it should work. Absolutely. That's a great confirmation. Yes. Are there any other chats? Anything else to say in the chat or questions? Great. Thank you, AJ. Oh, that's my colleague. Thank you, AJ. All right, then. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. Oh my gosh, see if there's anything else that we have here. See Jeanette or Olivia, if you wanted to say anything or how we're doing. Done a little bit early.
Yeah, I think we're good, other than just the stuff in the Q&A area of Zoom.
Okay, I think we answered all of these.
You've answered all those? Okay.
We sure did.
All right.
I didn't hit the answer live button. I just answered.
And someone's asking about sharing the slides, so we will do that later today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you. I loved spending my Tuesday morning with y'all, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.